I'm so sorry I'm late.
No worries.
More handsome in person. Look at you.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you so much for working with us, Love Magazine, on the next issue. It's something that we feel, strongly about, and I just joined the team, and I feel like it's new beginnings, and we're all advocating change, and working with UK Black Pride is definitely one of our highlights. Can you introduce yourself and tell me more about your background?
I'm Phyll Opoku-Gyimah, also known as Lady Phyll to some people. I'm the co-founder and executive director of UK Black Pride, which is an amazing organisation which really is about African, Caribbean, Asian, Indigenous, the diaspora, that come together as LGBTQ plus people to celebrate in pride, but also challenge homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, and racism that's within our community and outside. So that's I like to call it my gay job. I have a day job as well, where I am the CEO of Kaleidoscope Trust, which is an international human rights charity that really sets out to uphold human rights for LGBT people, mostly in the Commonwealth space. And I'm an African, Black, lesbian warrior woman whose roots are rooted in Ghanaian rich history, and I'm not apologetic about who I am.
I want to ask you actually about because when we think of LGBTQ and people from an African or Asian or Caribbean descent, there's doing my research, I came to realize that our views completely change after we got colonized, because before that there are many tales and many stories of how being LGBTQ on the continent was normal, if not praised or blessed in some part of Africa.
So, absolutely. Being from a colonized country, we have got repressive laws that exist, and that was brought to us by the British. We had our own faith, religion, belief, or our culture and our heritage and traditions, whereas that all got wiped away when we were colonized. We were told this is how church should be. So you're a Christian and this is how you should operate. And again, I'm not doing any disrespect to those of us who are Christians or Muslims. I just think that we have to think much wider on the spectrum about, what has changed, what was brought to us, and what was ingrained and embedded in our world when we were colonized. And just thinking differently is important to do so.
What do you think makes us special? There's so much, I feel like, richness and love, but what do you actually think make us special?
It's hard to answer that question without having a whole week's long of conversation, because we are amazing, resilient, powerful, cultured people who are rich in history. I think our melanin alone makes us special. People save their money to get darker. Yeah. Even though they don't want what comes with it, which is an enormous amount of, the racism structurally and systemically that's ingrained in our lives. I know that we're special just by virtue of how our hair is, the way we talk, how we move and glide through society, the things that we know how to do, how inventive and creative we've had to be over decades and decades. The way we communicate with each other when we see each other on the street without knowing each other, just the look, that makes us special. We know what it feels like to be treated as different or to be othered.
I also feel like, there is within our community, colorism is a big issue. How do you guys tackle that, and how do you think is the best way to educate people into accepting themselves?
I mean, I love your questioning, because There is no one way around education, especially when colonization has played such a huge part in how it's divided us. To the eye of the white person, the standard of beauty has always been seen that you should be blonde hair, blue eyes, and, you know, fair skin. And that's what's seen as acceptable. And if you're dark skin like me with, you know, big nose, big lips, and particular features, we're not seen as being elevated or amplified in any beautiful way. So I think education within our own communities has to be that we're not doing this divide and rule. We're not trying to out-trump each other with our difference or create hierarchies of oppression, because we should understand what it feels like to be oppressed. But that won't come overnight. That's a lot of work. And I think having these intergenerational conversations, speaking with elders about what they've gone through, understanding Blackness and what white supremacy has done within our lives, has to be a way of starting to usualize the conversation of how colorism is very, very dangerous.
You know, which brings me to thinking about forgiveness, because we've, you know, I feel like a lot of us are angry, rightfully. And also, speaking of, you know, coming from a colonized country, my family is from Congo, and my great-grandfather was, when the Catholic missionaries arrived in Congo, he didn't want to, you know, follow their rules and follow their way of life. So they put him in a fish trap and threw him in a river, and he drowned. And I always wonder, because, you know, my family is Christian, and I always wonder, how did we forgive?
I mean, your questions are so on point, and things that we should be, and we are starting to talk about in our communities. But there's a sense of healing that Black people require, because this is generational trauma. And some of us are going through PTSD, post-traumatic stress, without actually knowing what that trauma is. But a coming together is really needed. And some people use, you know, so many different holistic methods, you know, their way of meditating or chanting or sitting in groups or connecting with, say, other like-minded Black women or Black men, to talk about some of the concerns, some of the way their mental health is impacted in this world, that allows them to start the healing process. But forgiveness is a different thing. I think that you have to go through healing sometimes before you can forgive.
For anyone wanting to be involved in UK Black Pride, where do they start?
So UK Black Pride is by us and for us, right? So anybody who is of the Black queer experience, the LGBTQ plus experience, can get involved. On our website, we have a mailing list. In the next couple of weeks, we'll have a number of vacancies going out for our core team, and we'll also be putting out a call out for volunteers. But we say just reach out to us. We've got, you know, great social media platforms as well. You know, message and say you want to get involved. Someone from the team will have a conversation about, you know, what skills you have, what can you bring to the table, and how can you assist, and we take it from there. You know, it's a community owned event and a community owned movement.